What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the From the Sidelines YouTube with Francis and Peter. Obviously, just me here today. But today, I'm going to be going over my mock draft 1.0. You guys probably saw Francis did his first mock draft last week. And then he's probably going to come out with another one in a few weeks. And then I'm probably going to come out with another one, maybe probably like a week after that. One quick note, actually, a few quick notes before we dive right in here. Um, this mock draft is not it's not like necessarily a prediction of who I think they're going to take. It's more of who I would like them to take. But it's not like me not addressing their needs. It's not just like a straight up big board, but it's is if I was the GM for each team. And then the other thing is I started this mock draft like probably around Friday, and then obviously the games were played over the weekend, so the order changed. So my draft that I have written down, the order is a little different, but I'm just gonna roll with the same teams and then probably switch up the picks a little. So it might be a little bit like skewed. Maybe some players are available in places they probably shouldn't be available at the end, or maybe some picks seem like more of a reach. But if that's why, then you obviously know that now. And then I think that's it. So we can dive right in here. Shout out to PFF for making this mock draft maker. Been using it for a couple years. Just great software. So shout out to them. Okay, we're gonna dive right in here. Start. Now, Tennessee Titans. Well, one thing I saw that was really interesting today, obviously I made this draft before, as I previously stated, but their general manager said we wouldn't pass up on a generational talent, and this guy right here, Travis Hunter out of Colorado, I feel like he's really the only generational talent there is in that draft. So I thought that was really interesting, and maybe that could shift the boards of mock drafts upcoming. But for now, I'm just going to stick with what I got. Okay, so first pick, Tennessee Titans. Shedeur Sanders, quarterback out of Colorado. I've been seeing everybody pick Cam Ward for Tennessee here, and honestly, I just don't get it because I feel like Shedeur is a way better fit because I see Ward in Miami having all day, and that Tennessee O line is just absolutely horrendous. He needs a lot of time to get stuff going. And then contrastly, when you look at Sanders at Colorado, he has literally no time to do anything. He has to drop back super far. It's probably like one of the worst O lines in the Power Four, at least. So he'd be used to that. And then obviously, like the arm talent with him is just absolutely off the charts. He is a complete cannon, which people don't realize. And obviously, super mobile. I just feel like it's more of a better scheme fit for him. I actually do like Brian Callahan as a coach, and I feel like he can work with them to succeed there. And then for the second pick to the Cleveland Browns, gonna go with Cam Ward, quarterback out of Miami. I mean, this is kind of 1A, 1B quarterbacks here, but the order I chose is just because of scheme fits. And it's actually worked out great that the Browns have a great offensive line. And like I was saying, Ward at Miami had a lot of time to develop in the pocket. And when he has that time, he just throws absolutely beautiful football. He's really poised, but it would be a little scary to see what he would be like with a really bad NFL offensive line. Obviously, the NFL, he's never going to have as much time as he did in college. Um, but I feel like this fit is better. He's really great in the clean pocket, accurate, and then he's really accurate. His arm talent is good, and like I said, he just throws such a nice football. So, and obviously, both of these teams have a huge need at quarterback. Will Levis, Deshaun Watson, yeah, they're not going to cut it, and Watson's already up for next year. So, Browns literally have no one else. They must go quarterback. Titans, maybe Travis Hunter. We'll see in the future. And then at 3 here to the New York Giants. Ooh, they have him listed as a corner. I'm gonna go with Travis Hunter, cornerback receiver out of Colorado. I mean, it's kind of whatever the Giants really want here because he's the best player available. It's more what they really want with Travis Hunter specifically. I didn't clarify that because they can have him play corner And then, honestly, on the New York Giants, out of all teams, they could maybe sneak in a little bit of receiver. Obviously, he's not going to be able to play every single snap like he did in college because it's just not sustainable at this level. But the situation really allows him to play a lot of both. Elite generational talent, being able to play both sides of the ball in college, and probably top five at both sides. Like the Travis Hay, we've talked about it on the pod before. It's just gotten a little too out of hand. Like people were saying he's not top five at either position, and he didn't deserve Heisman. Just absolutely bonkers to me because I mean this man is a generational talent. You just need to watch it, and he just moves so fluidly, and he's really good in man zone. I mean, there's not even like I could go into kind of the scouting report with him, but I don't even feel it's necessary because everybody who's like at least somewhat interested in the NFL draft this year understands how much of a generational talent Travis Hunter is. Okay, moving on. Fourth, New England Patriots taking Abdul Carter, edge rusher out of Penn State. Oh my, I love Abdul Carter. Generational edge prospect. And on top of that, Mike Vrabel, defensive guru, plays hard, smash mouth football. It's just genuinely a match made in heaven. This man could single-handedly just transform this pass rush and this defense. If you watched any of the college football games, I think it was the Cotton Bowl. I think that was the semifinal game. And then against Boise State. I think he was injured in the Boise State game, but absolute game wrecker. Flies off the edge, insane burst, huge. Literally Micah Parsons 2.0. I could not be more sure of a prospect to hit in this year's draft. If he's not good at all, I'll do something for you guys. Like I'll do a punishment or something because that just shows how sure I am that he's going to be a great prospect. I mean, like finesse moves, power moves, you name it, he's really good at it. Also insane athlete. Moving on to number 5. Gonna go with Will Johnson, cornerback out of Michigan. Fortunately, against my Huskies in the national championship last year, he played really well, and he's the best cornerback in the draft so far. We've seen the hit rate of cornerbacks. This is just one observation, not specifically about Johnson, but it applies. We've seen the hit rate of cornerbacks just skyrocket recently that are drafted in the top 10 picks. And I think when you have a guy like Will Johnson or a Devin Witherspoon or a Derek Stingley or even a Sauce Gardner that's like draftable within the top 5 or 6 or 7 picks, you have to draft him because those guys can absolutely change the game right away. Like Derek Stingley, first team All-Pro, Sauce Gardner, first team All-Pro, Devin Witherspoon, 2-time Pro Bowler, robbed a Defensive Rookie of the Year last year. When you get into this upper echelon and there is a cornerback that's like highly rated, you have to. You have to go for him. And one of the things I like specifically about Johnson that he's so versatile, good in man and zone, and with kind of the uncertainty and like the coaching situation. I know the Bucks OC. I'm blanking on his name. It's like something Owa, but he just declined the job, and then they fired Trent Baalke, the general manager, who would have probably messed this pick up. Absolutely horrible GM. But yeah, I think this is a pretty good pick for the Jags. It's a safe pick, and with the uncertainty at coach, you don't want to go towards a certain position group that would only sort of benefit you if, like, depending on your coach and your new coaching staff. So this is a safe pick, and there's a really high percentage chance that he hits here and becomes an elite level cornerback. Okay, Raiders. I'm going with the guy out of Boise State, the Heisman runner-up, Ashton Jeanty. He was my Heisman. I love Travis Hunter. He's a great player, but in my book, Ashton Jeanty just absolutely deserved it. Carried that Boise State team. Maddox Madsen, okay quarterback, but Jeanty, he did it all for them. And I see the Raiders taking him here at 6. I know a lot of people won't agree with this, but honestly, I think that the running back, I guess, like being the running back underratedness and the underpaying running back era stops right now after what we saw this season. literally, I could go on and on about all the free agent running backs that succeeded this offseason. Aaron Jones, Tony Pollard, Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry. Um, I I mean, there's countless more. Josh Jacobs. There's so many free agent running backs, and they impacted their team so much. And then when you have a generational Bijan Robinson, Saquon Barkley-esque prospect like this, you have to pick him. And on top of that, I know I said it wasn't a prediction, but Mark Davis is a very, very flashy guy. He loves flashy, he loves speedy players, he loves weapons, and there's don't look any further than Ashton Genty. Also, right now their running back room is like 30-something-year-old Amir Abdullah, who actually had a pretty good season. Sincere McCormick, Zamir White, Alexander Madison. Yeah, Genty's the pick here, and we've seen how running backs can transform offenses. Seventh, going Mason Graham, DT out of Michigan. Jets need a cornerstone piece for their defense. It's just the bottom line here. I do like the Aaron Glenn hire, and I made this before, but I think it works perfectly. Defensive-minded guy, grounded pound, smash mouth football. And Mason Graham, he's just so good. He's a generational defensive tackle pressure generator, great in the run too. But he is so good, man, at going on the inside and just being an absolute force to be reckoned with. I feel like within a year or two, he's going to be one of the top two defensive tackles, or one of the top, not top, I don't know about top two. I don't even think you can really predict that. But he's going to be a top 3 or 4 interior linemen in the league, and I'm really excited, especially with Glenn and the new system that's going to be instilled there. Hopefully, they can figure out the ownership issues with Woody Johnson and then the whole general manager situation. Joe Douglas got fired, but hopefully this is the pick they make here, because anyone else, it's kind of hit or miss, and the Jets really need, I guess, just star power on the lines. They're not a bad roster. They're not a bad roster. They're probably the best roster out of teams that had a head coaching vacancy. Maybe the Bears, if you're not counting quarterback, just the best roster overall. So there's not like a ton of gaping holes. Obviously quarterback, but you can't really go that here. But yeah, I like Graham here. Just generational prospect. Panthers. Where is he? Kelvin Banks Jr., tackle out of Michigan. I know a lot of people are saying T-Mac here, and I get it. Bryce needs a receiver, but I kind of like what they have there in Arizona or in Carolina. I think Dave Canales, head coach, likes it too. You got Leggett, struggled with drops in his rookie season a little bit, but he showed promise. Obviously, athleticism off the charts. And then Jalen Coker, the undrafted rookie out of Holy Cross, absolutely a huge Jalen Coker supporter. I really like what I see from him. Just great route runner, just a great receiver, great work by the folks in Carolina there and finding him as a UDFA out of the draft. And then you need to protect Bryce Young. He proved at the end of the season to me, and I know to Francis as well, that he's our franchise guy. I mean, those throws he was making, especially in that meaningless Week 18 game against the Falcons, the no-look touchdown pass. But even if you're not watching the highlights, he's grown so much. And I saw Dave Canales talking about this. He handled the benching to Andy Dalton with just so much respect, and he learned so much from it. And you can tell he started working a lot harder. He just looks so much more poised in the pocket. Before, I'll admit it, I was a Bryce Young. I thought it was over. I thought he was one of the worst number 1 picks ever. He just looked like a little kid. He just looked like a little kid running out there in the pocket. But now he looks poised. And he looks like he's really meant to be there. And if you want to make him to continue look like that, you have to protect him. And I think Calvin Banks, great tackle. He's probably, in my opinion, the best tackle in the draft. This isn't really a super, there's usually one big cornerstone tackle in the draft. I bet Joe Alt would go super high in this year's class, probably at about 4 to the Patriots, maybe. Olu Fashanu probably would have gone higher than Calvin Banks too, but this is a little bit of a weaker tackle class. But I do like Banks, and I think it's going to be a great fit in Carolina. For the Saints, I'm drafting T-Mac, Tedero McMillan, wide receiver out of Arizona. There's obviously uncertainty with Chris Olave. He's the best player available. And, oh my goodness, I want to talk about this guy. He's a huge man with great hands, large frame. Just look. I'm just gonna ask you guys to look up a Tedder if you haven't already seen it. Look up a Tedero McMillan like highlight compilation, or even just there's a video of him at like a field just snagging balls out of the air, just picking him out of the air with his hands. It's just absolutely insane. And there's so much uncertainty with Olave. Personally, I think when you have that many concussions, you should retire. But I know that's probably not what's gonna happen. Um, but you're kind of in a rough situation here. Can't really go quarterback, so I guess they're going to stick with Derek Carr. They don't really have any other option. And then, yeah, there's just not a lot. Like, they're in really bad cap. They have a really bad cap situation for, like, I don't know, like, thousandth straight year. So if they want to land star power, they have to do it through the draft, and I think McMillan is the way for them to do that. Moving on to the Bears. Going with Will Campbell, the tackle out of LSU. Just need to protect Caleb Williams. Ben Johnson, love the hire. Crafty. Really like what the ownership did there in Chicago, but you need to protect Caleb. He was just absolutely being chased everywhere last year. And this is as close to a no-brainer as you can get. He has great game strength, and he finishes his blocks really well from what I've seen. I was watching a little bit of him, actually not a little bit, quite a bit, and he's a really big, like, he doesn't give up on plays, which I really like, and I think that's the culture that they're going to try and instill there in Chicago. I think Ben Johnson, he might look like a little bit of a softie, but I think he's going to try and bring some of that Dan Campbell hard mentality, and I think Will Campbell's kind of the perfect player for that. Niners, Josh Simmons, tackle out of Ohio State. They have a need for O-line. They have a really good roster. They're Niners fans, as much as I hate them, they should not be panicking. They should not be drafting this high. They just had a lot of injuries this year, and they were in the Super Bowl a year ago at this time. So I think everyone just needs to calm down. And when in doubt, draft an O-lineman. I would normally say when in doubt, draft an edge rusher. But if there's a O-lineman on the board like this, and you don't really have that many other glaring needs, you just got to pick him. The O-line was a little lackluster this year, especially the tackles, and I think Simmons, one of the best tackles in this year's draft. He's very quick and loose from when I watched him. I think he's going to test really well at the combine, so maybe he might even leapfrog Campbell and Banks, so we'll see about that. Dallas Cowboys. Going with Michael Williams, edge out of Georgia. Now, this is going to seem like a reach, but I really like Michael Williams. He's an absolute physical freak, 6'5", 265. And he's great against the run as well as against the pass. And I feel like Jerry, he's more of a... He really likes the SEC. I know he drafted Micah. But, yeah, Williams, he's a little bit of a reach, but he's such a physical specimen. And just similar to what I was saying about Mark Davis, Jerry really likes the flashy guys who can probably get him a lot of money. And this dude's potential is off the charts, but I could see him being a bust. Just because he's lacking a little bit of game awareness and things like that. But it's a boomer bust pick here, and I think Jerry Jones is going to take his chance. Moving on to number 13, Malachi Starks, safety out of Georgia. I'm just going to preface this by saying I know safety isn't that important of a position anymore. You don't really see a lot of safeties go high. I could see him falling further than this. Like we saw Kyle Hamilton, who is by far one of the best safety prospects we've seen in a while, probably since Minka. He fell pretty far. He fell to 13, I think, or 14 to the Ravens, and we saw how that worked. And I think this, similar to running back, I think safety might have a little bit of a, um, it might work its way up in terms of position importance, I guess, because, sorry, I had to talk to my mom. Um, he's going to work his way up in position importance, and I think it's a really safe pick for the Dolphins here. We saw obviously they traded Minka like right after his rookie season, turned out to be great safety. They drafted him around this spot, and they really need help in the secondary. It did not work out great this year. And then he's a field general with like some of the most insane ball skills I've ever seen for a safety. I mean, he's a wide receiver out there, so I think they got to go Starks here. Colts, Luther Burden, the third wide receiver from Missouri. I've seen everyone and their mother mock Tyler Warren, tight end from Penn State, to the Colts here, but I just don't like it. I kind of think that Anthony Richardson, they don't really use their tight ends that much in Indy. Um, I I think that Mo Alley Cox, and then the other tight ends they had there, they each had like 150 yards or 200 yards. It's just not really a big factor in Shane Steichen's offense, and I don't think just drafting a tight end would change it that much. Um, and Luther Burden, man, he was projected so high last year. He had a little bit of a um, kind of a slump this season, but his talent is absolutely off the charts. And um, yeah, AR needs a go-to receiver who he can just spam because he doesn't really have like a reliable target right now. It was kind of all over the place. Like some weeks he would throw it to Pittman a lot, some weeks he would throw it to Josh Downs a lot, but it would never be on the same, and his completion percentage was really low. And I guess his make or break season, he just gotta be able to find a guy who he can hit consistently, like kind of what we saw with Michael Penix, kind of honing in on having Drake London as his number one target, which he really liked, and then he has a comfortable player to go to every play, and I really think that Luther Burden could be that for the Colts. At 15, I have Nick Scourton. Hold on. At 15 to the Falcons, I have Nick Scourton, edge out of Texas A&M. Obviously, they have a huge need at edge. That whole defense is terrible. In my opinion, not in my opinion, I'm going to be decisive. Matthew Judon is the most overrated edge in the NFL, and he's old. He genuinely does nothing. Like, he gets a bunch of sacks, and then he doesn't contribute in the run at all. I saw Cameron Jordan talking about this on a podcast. I think it was with Julian Edelman. And obviously, I'm going to listen to him. He's an all-pro, however many time NFL defensive end. And he said that the players who get a bunch of sacks and then don't do anything else are worse for the team than the players who just do nothing. And I totally agree with him because, and I think Matthew Judon is a perfect example of that. Like here, I'm going to pull up his PFF right now. Shout out to PFF. They have, I have their $25 a month subscription. It's great. Okay, so Matthew Judon, it's pulling up here. Sorry about that. He has a 43 overall PFF grade, which is 194th out of 211 edges. And then he has 25 pressures, which is 72nd out of 211 edges, which isn't even that good. And then he has a snap count, and then his pass rush grade is 53.9. His run defense grade is 53.6. So if that's his pass rush grade, he's not even that good of a pass rusher anymore, and obviously he doesn't contribute in the run. So the moral of the story is, I don't want to get too much further into that. They need to move on from him. And Nick Scourton, Texas A&M, he's the best player available. I'm not a huge fan of him, but they need edge help, and it's kind of a no-brainer here. Okay, to the Cardinals at 16, I have Ariante Ursary, the tackle out of Michigan, or out of Minnesota, not Michigan. They need an offensive tackle opposite to Paris Johnson Jr., who's been great. Super underrated so far, by the way. He's athletic. He has flaws, but they're coachable, especially by a guy like Gannon. I know he got a lot of heat when he was hired, but he's done a pretty good job with the Cardinals. And yeah, well, I mean, I didn't mean really like Gannon. I meant sort of kind of what they have going on with their offensive line, because obviously they've coached Paris Johnson Jr. pretty well, and his flaws. Well, the main thing that didn't really make a lot of sense, but the main thing I'm getting at is that he's very coachable, and his flaws are very. Or I don't know if he's very coachable, but his flaws are very coachable and fixable, and I think he's a lot of potential to succeed there in Arizona. At 17, it's probably going to shock you guys that I'm not going defense here, but when Tyler Warren's on the board, you got to pick him. Out of Penn State, the tight end, absolutely amazing blocker, which is such a huge plus. They need to protect 9. His offensive line has been horrible his entire career. I mean, the Bengals, their strengths, quarterback, Chase Brown's a good receiving back, and wide receivers. And then you have so when you add a guy like Tyler Warren, and their weaknesses are O-line and defense, and their entire defense, basically. And we had a guy like Tyler Warren who can contribute both in the blocking and then the receiving game. This pick is made assuming T. Higgins walks in free agency, which I think he's going to go. I think he's probably going to go to the Patriots or a team similar to that who doesn't have a lot of receivers right now, maybe the Chargers. And I think Burrow could really use a guy like this. He was hitting Mike Gesicki just a ton throughout the season this year. He was just targeting him a bunch. And then when you have a guy like Tyler Warren, he doesn't look like he would succeed at the next level when you just see one, I guess, clip of him. But then when you move on and you see when you actually watch the film of him, he's a great receiving tight end and he's a great blocker. So I think it's a really good pick for them. It's assuming the Colts don't grab him at 14, which I previously mentioned. To my Seahawks, I have James Pierce Jr. This is a little biased because I'm not sure if he'd fall this far. I know he's actually rising up boards recently. But last year he was the projected number 1 pick. Then he fell down, and then now he's coming back up. He has so much potential. He's super speedy off the edge. And this dude is literally the perfect Mike McDonald player. I know he can mold him into just an absolutely great edge. And the Seahawks, me personally, I want a cornerstone edge rusher so bad. I think it's our biggest need by far. And obviously you're probably thinking interior line. Yeah, that's our biggest need in terms of personnel, I guess. But in terms of a star, it's got to be edge rusher. A star edge rusher can just make your team, and a guy like James Pierce has that potential. Obviously, he could be a bust. That happens sometimes, and that's probably why he's not being picked in the top 3 or the top 5 anymore. Because we saw his production kind of go down a lot this year, but his potential is off the charts, and I think when there's a guy like that available, you have to roll the dice because they can change a team so much. All right, number 19. Okay, this is where it gets a little messy. To the Buccaneers, though, I have linebacker Jalen Walker out of Georgia. This dude can play defensive end, and he can play inside linebacker. And would you look at that? Their needs are edge and linebacker, which is perfect. But that's not what I'm going off. He's the best player available. And he's extremely versatile, just extremely all over the defense. Todd Bowles, defensive-minded coach, I think can really work out for him. They can play him probably wherever they would want to. I like him more at edge. I think I was talking to Francis. I think he does as well. They have Levante David, although he is aging. So they can sort of move him all over the place. I bet Todd Bowles is willing to get crafty off him. But I know Joe Tryon's been injured a little, I think, and then he could also help off the edge, which I think that's where they're going to start him, and then maybe later on they could move him move him around. To the Broncos, number 20. This is a pretty easy pick for me. I have Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver, Ohio State. They need to get Bo, a wide receiver, to complement Sutton. I think Egbuka really complements Sutton's size. And he's Sutton, in my opinion, he's not really like a Bo Nix type receiver. Like, he's a big contested catch guy, and that's not really what Bo Nix does. And he still had a great season. And then you have Emeka Egbuka, more of a horizontal JSN. I know they both went to the same college, but that's just it's a really good comparison. He can obviously go vertical, but he's really good in the short and intermediate range. And Bo Nix, the check down merchant, that's where he loves to throw the ball. I'm not going to hate on Bo Nix too much. I'm not going to let my personal bias of him, because I don't like him because he went to Oregon. I'm not going to let that get in the way, and I think this is a really good pick. And I think Sean Payton wants an offensive guy to help his second-year quarterback. To the Steelers, I have... Wait, hold on. I need to find this. To the Steelers, I got Matthew Golden here, the wide receiver out of Texas. The thing I want to say is this draft in general is... I feel like since it's a little bit of a weaker class, not a little bit, it's a weaker class. I think it's going to be more need-based here, and the Steelers, they just need a spark. I know it's a bit of a reach, but on offense, George Pickens, he's a great receiver. I'm not discrediting him at all, but he's just too inconsistent, and his attitude is a little all over the place. And in my opinion, Golden is one of the most underrated receivers in the draft. He's super speedy. I think he's going to test really well at the combine. Great contested catcher. We saw him in the playoffs. He rose his draft stock a lot. I think that's going to be what gets him into the first round, in my opinion. I really like him to the Steelers here. They just need to be flashy on offense. And, yeah. Okay, at 22 to the Chargers, I have Omarion Hampton, running back out of North Carolina. Absolutely love this guy as a prospect. They need a weapon, and it was weird that they didn't have, obviously J.K. Dobbins had a good year. I'm pretty sure he's a free agent this year. And they need a Harbaugh. They need that classic Jim Harbaugh run game that we saw at Michigan with Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards. And obviously they have Herbert, so they're not going to go that. They're not going to become that much of a run-dominant team. But when you have a good downhill runner like Hampton, who's just such a Jim Harbaugh-style running back, I think it's really going to work. He's the second-best running back in the draft, in my opinion. And I think he even could go higher than this, because the other 2022, we saw Bijan go 8. No one expected him to. Jahmyr Gibbs go 12. Nobody expected him to. So I think Hampton could go higher. I think there's going to be probably 3, maybe even 4 running backs taken in the first round this year. I don't know about 4, but I'm pretty confident there's going to be 3, just because we've really seen. I was talking about it earlier, but we've really seen how much the running back position has, I guess, just increased its value over the past couple of years. At 23 to the Green Bay Packers, I have Benjamin Morrison, cornerback, Notre Dame. Best player available, clearly. And then they need a corner opposite to the injury-prone Jair Alexander. He's really similar to Devin Witherspoon, in my opinion. I know it's a pretty big comparison. He's just really aggressive in run and man. Kind of fits that in classic Notre Dame style. Feisty, gritty. And I really like that here for the Packers. I think they need a guy like that on defense, because Jair, he's a man-to-man guy, but he's not. He's, I guess, a little undersized. And he's not like a scrappy guy like Spoon or like Morrison. And he's really injury-prone. So I think Morrison's a great pick here for Green Bay. At 24 to the Vikings, I have Caleb Johnson, running back out of Iowa. This was originally supposed to be pick 28, so it's more of a reach than it already was. But oh my goodness, I absolutely love this guy. Aaron Jones, free agent. I talked about how he had a really good season. He's going to find another team. Caleb Johnson's my most underrated player in the draft. He just has amazing vision, and his break tackle ability is insane. It's insane. Please go watch film on him. I wish I could put it up. He breaks the first tackle every time. It's like he has freight train in Madden. And the thing about him is that he's used to being the focal point at Iowa when they literally have zero offense, just absolutely nothing. Um, so I like I like him here to the Vikings. They need a guy who they can really go to and rely on offense that's not dependent on quarterback play. Obviously, I'm referring to Jefferson and Addison. Great receivers. There's not a quarterback available. Maybe Dart. I'm gonna have to watch more film on him before I can put him in the first round. I do think they're gonna go with McCarthy. I'm not. I'm not saying that the Vikings should pick him. I'm just alluding to the fact that there's no like clear. Yeah. Okay. Forget what I said. Johnson is he's going to provide that spark they need. And with McCarthy probably starting, in my opinion, I think Darnold's in the playoffs. He played himself out of um, signing a really big contract with the Vikings. I think McCarthy's going to need a guy who can rely on in the run game. And I think Johnson's is exactly that. And I don't think Minnesota's front office really cares about reaching on a running back if it means helping their rookie quarterback. At 25, the Texans, Kenneth Grant, the other defensive tackle out of Michigan, best D lineman, best D line in the league, maybe, after this draft pick. Daniil Hunter, Will Anderson, and Kenneth Grant, if he works out, oh my goodness. He's such a great run stuffer, and then you put him in between Hunter and Anderson. Like, it's just absolutely insane. And then he can be that guy. You have those two pass rushers. He can generate pressures, but he can also just stuff the run, and they really need that. I think D'Amico Ryan's head coach, I think he's going to really help Kenneth Grant out, and he could really has a lot of potential to succeed and has a lot of just potential in general to become. All the defensive tackles in this draft are really underrated. Yeah, he has a lot of potential. 26, Los Angeles Rams. I have Jonas Savaiana, offensive tackle from Arizona. I had him at 22 originally. That's where the Rams were. But obviously, the draft order got changed. I think he might be gone by now. But that's that. Rob Havenstein's really old. They have a need a tackle. And he's the best tackle available by far. He's huge and he's very strong. Great in the run and pass. You don't even need to go any further than that. If there's offensive lineman on the board and you have a needed O line and he's actually good, and then he's the best player available, it's a no brainer. And you take him. That's what the Rams are going to do. It's just a safe Rams pick. I think that's what McVay wants, and that's what they're going to do. To the Ravens here, I have JT Tuimoloau, Ohio State edge rusher. Where is he? They need pass rush and a big, strong pass rusher with great bull rush and what did I put that right there? And power moves. Yeah, he's not a super athlete, even though he was such a highly rated recruit at Eastside Catholic, just across the lake from Seattle, just across 2 lakes. But yeah, he's really powerful, and he's a great run stuffer, which is a huge plus. Really good at setting the edge and containing in the run game. And I think that's what the Ravens want. I don't think they need a big, like, I know their pass defense has been poor, but I guess, like, the other pass rushers available, like Princely and Jack Sawyer, I just don't really think they fit the Ravens as much as Tuimoloau does. At 28 to the Lions, they're originally 32. I have Princely, edge, Ole Miss. Not even a Umanian. I've never tried to pronounce the last name. Pass rush faltered without Hutch down the stretch, and they need a guy opposite to him because who knows how he's going to come back from that injury. Such a good player. I'm really hoping for the best. But Princely, physical specimen. He's got really good burst and finesse moves with long arms, and his ceiling is really high. I know they don't have Aaron Glenn anymore, but I still think it's going to work out. I think he was a little bit less of a scheme-based coach and more of a culture guy than opposed to Ben Johnson on the offensive side of the ball in Detroit. So yeah, I don't think the defense is going to be that like the results of the defense are going to be like the change of that is going to be as drastic as the change of the offense will be. But yeah, I like Princely. He's really athletic. Just seems like a lion. I know that's not really good reasoning, but all the other stuff was. At 29, the Washington Commanders. I have Siobhan Rebel, cornerback, East Carolina. Their pass defense is horrible. It just is. Lattimore is aging, and I'm pretty sure his contract is expiring. I should have looked that up, but I didn't. Sorry for that. And then he fits right in there if Lattimore's still there. And even if he's not, then they need him even more. And then Sandra's still at nickel. Post him on the Instagram. Go follow that as player of the week. 2 picks in the playoff game. Great player, but I'm not going to talk about him anymore. He's a Revel, that is. He's a tall, great athlete. Great size, 6'3". He's a little skinny. But their pass defense is like 29th in the league, I'm pretty sure. He's just, yeah, he fits right in there, and they really need help on their secondary. And Revel's probably the best, not the best player available, I would say, but the best corner available. And that's their biggest need. At 30 to the Buffalo Bills, I have Derek Harmon, defensive tackle out of Oregon. Now, I could really see this guy going a lot higher. Like I was saying, the defensive tackles in the draft are really good and really underrated. I'm not sure why PFF has him so low. I'll need to figure that out. I can look at like why they graded him like that, and then we could probably talk about it on our next podcast. But for Harmon, the Buffalo Bills really need D-line help. He's versatile in the run and pass. I've said that for like a lot of people, but he is. And then as a defensive back, he's a sneaky pass rush bag, which is a really big plus. And then specifically for the perennial playoff, divisional, championship, Super Bowl teams, like that level of playoff performers, they need line help. And that's the place I would go for. Like with the lower teams, in my opinion, I feel like you really need to search for star power to like get your offense going and stuff like that. But then once you're perennial playoff performers, you need to, you need to bolster your offensive line, and you need to, like win in the trenches. You've probably heard everyone say this, but it's true. At 31 to the Philadelphia Eagles, I have Jack Sawyer, edge out of Ohio State. This man played out of his mind in the college football playoff. After that game against Michigan, where he had that outburst, he took away the Michigan flag. Everyone was kind of clowning on him, but then he just played out of his mind down the stretch in the college football playoff, where everyone was able to see, all the scouts were able to see. And the Eagles need him here. They need another edge opposite to Nolan Smith. Super underrated player. I keep finding myself just talking about these players on teams that I like Sain Ristel, Smith, a bunch of other ones. But I'm going to try not to do that, but I do love him. Sawyer, that is so physical and powerful versus the run and the pass as well. But that's a really big plus. And then he's a nice bag of pass rush moves, and he has such a high motor, and he's always finishing plays, and that's just so Philly to me. That's just kind of who they are. That's kind of who they are. And he's a loud guy. He's outspoken. But Philly's a loud city, and Philly's an outspoken city, and Nick Sirianni's a really loud and outspoken guy, and he doesn't care what people say about him, and he'll yell back at you, and that's what Jack Sawyer does, and this is just a match made in heaven, so I think that's a really good pick there. 32, final pick in the first round. You guys are going to be absolutely shocked by this. I know Francis doesn't agree with me. Probably thinking, when I click tight end, you're thinking Colson Loveland. I'm not that big of a fan of him. Maybe we'll talk about that on the podcast. I'm going Harold Bannon Jr., tight end out of Bowling Green State University. This is assuming Travis Kelce retires, which if they win the Super Bowl, I think he's gonna. He just has nothing else to do. Yeah, he's such a super athlete. He's smaller. He's 6'3". He's a little skinnier, but he's a weapon for Patrick Mahomes, and Andy Reid would just do wonders with this guy. Francis thinks he's a little slower than I do. He thinks he's going to run a 4.7. I think he could run like a 4.6 or a 4.5. Watch that game against Texas A&M, the Bowling Green. Watch his highlights. Yeah, you don't even have to watch the game. Just watch his highlights or all of his routes run against Bowling Green. He's so good after the catch, and that's kind of what Travis Kelce is and really was even more in his prime. And Harold Fant is just a faster, more athletic, smaller version of that. But Kelsey's not even a good blocker, anyways, so it doesn't really. Fanon's blocking ability doesn't really matter. Okay, that's the end of my mock draft. Obviously, I'm still working out a few kinks, messed up the order a little bit there, but we adjusted to it. And yeah, here I'm gonna get one more scroll through. Comment your guys' thoughts below. Probably gonna be coming out with another one in a month or so, and then maybe one or two more after that, like before the probably one post combine and then one right before the draft, because that's when we kind of know the information and all the trades are made. But thank you guys so much for listening. Like and subscribe. Follow the Instagram. Follow the podcast. All that stuff. Yeah. See you guys next time.